Hello and welcome to the All the Pies NUFC podcast. I'm Kev. That isn't Sai. All will become clear. It's been a while since we've had a video, so there's a lot to unpack. And there's a lot to unpack from the channel and the team. So let's get straight into it.
God, he scored so many goals.
Hello. So,
Hello,
yeah.
Kev, you all right?
Aye, not bad, not bad. The eagle-eyed among yous out there will notice Sai's changed a little bit. He looks a lot more handsome.
I was
No.
going to say he's lost a bit weight.
He's lost
Say
a
that,
bit weight.
say that. It'll destroy him.
He's lost a bit weight. He's been to Turkey for a hair transplant. And he's sorted his room out. He's tidied his room.
And he's learned to play guitar as well.
He's learned to play guitar. No, so yeah, I said there was a bit of, I guess it is a sort of announcement. So Sai's got a lot of things going on at the moment. He's just doing things that's important. You know what I mean? He's like paid work and that. It's overrated. You'd much rather be here doing this for free.
Aye.
But yeah, he's got.
We're just busking along. We're just busking along. Aren't we?
We're busking along, yeah. So Sai, he's still going to be on the videos. He's still going to, feature when he can. But we do have the fantastic Davy Craig, who we're going to be seeing a lot more of. He's going to become a regular on the channel. Friend of the channel already, has done a favorite 11 before. But for anybody who hasn't seen the favorite 11, Davy, why don't you just give yourself a bit of a rundown? What's your crack? What's going on?
I can't remember my favourite 11. That was ages ago. I haven't got it around now. I've just been busy, and doing lots of music and looking forward to getting back to school. And I volunteer at a school and looking forward to getting back into that and just bits and bobs. And the season's started again, which is fantastic, even though it's been up and down and whatever, but it's still early days, and I'm so pleased we're back because I hate that. I love cycling. I love the Tour de France. So I've got 3 weeks where it's okay, but then it's back to like, oh, where's the football coming back? So.
Well, I'm a bit like that with the cricket, Davy. Sai regularly takes the mickey out of me because I am a cricket fan. And when you've got the Ashes going on, or there's a bit of England cricket, it does.
Yeah, I watched that when it was on, when it wasn't raining.
Aye, yeah, exactly. the beautiful summer we've had. And I know for a fact there'll be people out there going, I recognise him. I've seen him from somewhere. Where might have the people watching have seen you before, Davy?
Seen me before when I was in drill back in 1991. No, I was there. I used to get recognised though, Anyway, I was in the movie We Are the Geordies, which I'll probably talk about another time, about being in that. But that was a great experience. And if anybody hasn't watched it, even though I'm in it, and I'm not saying because I'm in it or in spite of me being in it, it is the best feel-good sports movie about fans that you will ever watch. It's just brilliant. And
I'll be honest, Davey, I watched it the first time just before Zara came on the channel, and it was a stark reminder of how far we've come.
Oh yeah,
and it is good because you're in it. You're the best thing in it, Davey. 100%. Didn't sell yourself short, mate.
Cheers.
So yeah, 100%. Definitely go and watch that. It's still available on Amazon, isn't it? I believe. And
it is. You can buy the DVD if you want to buy DVDs still, but it's on a number of different platforms. If anybody wants to know about it, message and I'll send bits and bobs about that. So don't worry about that.
Well, Davey, fantastic to have you on board, and we've got a lot to unpack today because, like I say, it's been a while since we've done a video, so I think it's only right where we sort of start discussing the football because there's a lot to discuss. So before we do, the question we always ask at this stage, Davey, is, are you ready?
I think so.
Are you sure you're ready?
I think so. Yeah, go on.
Are you ready?
Okay, let's go.
good to
I
have
wasn't
that
ready
happen.
for that.
You weren't ready for that. You never are ready for that. You never are ready for that. So, Davy, like I say, the last time we were on here, Newcastle
Excuse
hadn't
me.
kicked a ball in the Premier League. So I think it's why not, let's have a little bit of a recap of the season so far. So there was a lot of excitement building up to the beginning of the season. I know I was certainly excited. I had a pretty decent pre-season, and it led to that fateful Saturday afternoon at St James's Park where we entertained Aston Villa. And I know you were at the game, and
Yeah.
couldn't have asked for a better start. What was your take on that game? What was your feelings during that match?
It was weird because I couldn't go to the pre-season matches. I was away that weekend. I'd already booked something that weekend. So I missed collecting for the food bank, which I do before every game outside the Strawberry and things like that. And it was like you waited ages for it, and then all of a sudden it's like it hit. And I was really worried about it, to be honest. I thought, because I've picked Villa in my sort of team to do really well this season. And there was a player they've got, Diaby, which I kind of thought I'd love to have had him on our side. That first sort of, we started brilliantly, but they were okay as well. They started, it was a fairly even sort of 15, 20 minutes. And then it just seemed like we just hit Evel Knievel superpower and just went for it after that, and everything fell into place. And I wouldn't say it was a 10 out of 10 performance by everybody. I still thought the midfield had a little bit more to give. Tonali was brilliant.
Fantastic.
But I did think that, and I'm not having a go at them, but I did think with Bruno and Joelinton both playing for Brazil during the close season, they didn't get a proper, like a proper rest, and then they're not up to speed in the same way fitness wise as the other players had been because of just the time scale of it all. I think that's just my take on it. But even when they weren't, they were like 7s and 8s, which they were still brilliant. Everybody else just seemed to be fantastic, and it was just a joy, absolute joy.
Well, it was. I remember all the talk, on the build up to it is who's he going to start? Who's he going to start?
Yeah.
And when I saw that starting lineup, it wasn't a million miles away from what I'd kind of expected. There wasn't any great surprises. I was maybe the only one that was maybe a little bit of a surprise to us was probably Tonali.
Yeah, same with me. Yeah.
I'd had a feeling he mightn't have went for Tonali, but he did. And within the first few minutes, I was like, well,
I know.
that's why I'm not a manager,
why.
isn't it?
Yeah,
That's why
exactly.
I'm not a manager.
I thought he might give him a bit of time for to bed in fitness wise and getting used to the pace of it and stuff like that. And there were little mistakes he'd made. I mean, pre-season is pre-season. It's but I just thought maybe he might start with Longstaff and this, that, and the other. That we had a few that could have. We've got a visitor.
Go on, there's the Ben. Get past on YouTube now. Serves you right for not knocking. Gosh, it's crawling now. Harry, get what you need. Sorry to interrupt, Davey.
No, yeah, right. But I was the same as you. I wasn't sure that he would start, but I'm pleased he did. And it was a great start of the season. But I thought first game of the season, it's a good starting point. It was a brilliant win. Everything seemed to gel. I thought Isak was superb. I thought he was absolutely superb. And then Barnes coming on as well, I thought he was brilliant. But Gordon looked like a new player. He looked like a new signing. And
he did. And I mean, what I want to pick up on what you said there, Davey, is that there weren't a walkover, especially in the first half.
Yeah,
they were definitely in the game. I mean, if you listen to Alex Ferguson, which I don't, never have, and never will, I wouldn't go as far. Did you see when he got interviewed?
Yeah,
he says Aston Villa played them off the park.
No,
now, I know you're meant to respect your elders, but he's caused me enough pain over the years to say he's a senile old twat.
Yeah, I'll go along with that.
But it was. It was a breath of fresh air to be back in the Premier League, and it looked like we'd just completely picked up where we'd left off. Anthony Gordon looked brilliant. Like you said, Isaac was unplayable on that particular game.
Yeah.
But them substitutions when they came on, especially Harvey Barnes, just looked so dangerous.
Yeah.
He was doing that thing that he did for Leicester a lot on the left-hand side,
Yeah.
where if it's up high, he's beating people on a race, or if he cuts in from the left-hand side, he's in front of the defender, it's a goal. It's a goal.
Yeah.
And
he just drops his
missed one
shoulder and he's in. Yeah. He's quick. He's direct. That's the difference. I mean, I was disappointed, with Saint-Maximin moving on. Players like him don't come along very often. But I think the reason why Barnes is there and Saint-Maximin isn't is because of that directness. He basically he's there to get the ball, get it in the box, or go ahead, beat the defenders and try and score, which is, that's what he does. He's scored plenty of goals. But yeah, so it was a fantastic start of the season. But
it was, and we're sitting pretty top of the league. When was the last time? When was the last time we were able to chant "We are top of the league"?
I remembered it was back when Jack Charlton first took over as manager, when Arthur Cox had gone, and the third game of the season was against Aston Villa, and we won 3-0. Chris Waddle scored 2, I think. I'll not go into why, but it was a very memorable game for me. And we were top of the season, top of the league after 3 games, and everybody's thinking, "Oh, this is fantastic." We were absolutely rubbish for the rest of the season. Now, I remembered about that, but I thought, we're not going to be rubbish for the rest of the season. You can't take one game as the whole season. But by the same token, you can't take the first 4 games to say that this is what's going to happen the rest of the season as well.
Yeah,
So,
you can't. I mean, it's the old cliche. You can't win it in the first few weeks, and it's it's true. But I think that moves nicely on to possibly the second game. Now, I don't know about you, but certainly me. Well, I had COVID at this stage. Actually, I was on my back, so I was ill. I couldn't get out of bed, so all I was doing is watching content on YouTube, watching anything Newcastle United from my bed. And there was a feeling, even coming from the Manchester City fans, I think as well, that there was an opportunity when we went away to Man City to maybe it's not necessarily even come away with a win, but certainly take something away from the Etihad Stadium. We, had that opening game where we looked on absolutely superb form. They had just had the Super Cup. Is that what we call it? The Super Cup?
That's right.
A couple of days beforehand. That was in Athens in absolutely boiling hot weather. There could have been a hangover from that. It just felt that if there was a time you're going to go to the Etihad, that this would be a good time and a good team to go there.
Yeah.
What was your take on that game?
Well, I was there. Me and our lass went, and we stayed over close by on the Friday night. I'm just not good like traveling and sitting all day, and that. So we went and got a cheap place. But because of that, it meant that we went into Manchester, parked up at the ground. I was the first car there, and then got on the tram and went into the centre of Manchester. And we spoke to people on the tram. We spoke to lots of people in various places in Manchester itself, because I had full black and white on, me kilt, everything, me boots with all this stuff to paint. It was full black and white hat, everything.
Class.
And loads of people stopped and were chatting to us, and the majority were Man City fans. And honestly, there wasn't one person that thought that they were going to win. Every single one of them either thought we were going to win, but the consensus was that they would have been happy with a draw. That was basically their take on it. Now, unfortunately, the one person who wouldn't be happy with the draw is Pep Guardiola. But I think what he did tactically in that game basically showed how much respect and how worried he was about Newcastle. And I kind of think it set a little bit of a template as to how teams might look at us. Because for me, I wrote a piece in the NUFC blog in the close season, and I referenced the thing I'd written at the end of last season, But I said how the midfield was so important. Bruno was at the centre of everything, every little apex of all the triangles that were formed. He found himself at the apex of every triangle around the pitch. But you had likes of Joelton Willock on one side making runs off the ball. You had Longstaff doing exactly the same thing, creating more space for him and linking with players, defenders if they had to come back everywhere. So the midfield was key. But what Pep Guardiola did, he basically put 2 players on Isak and said, right, this is what we're going to do. We're going to put 2 players on you. We're going to force your wingers back so you will have a 5-man midfield. But he put 6 into his midfield. So even though we had both wingers were struggling to get forward, we were still a man under because he flooded his midfield and they were absolutely brilliant. Their passing and movement, it was just like watching a 5-a-side game. And then he had the little Argentinian, I forget his name. He was like playing as a number 10 and then Haaland up front. And I thought we played brilliantly against those 2. The defence was superb, especially Botman against Haaland. But it was bound to happen where we were going to get dragged out of position and things like that. And I thought we ran and ran and ran, and it was really difficult. But they started tiring, and we looked like we were getting more into it. And, you know, it's just a shame that we didn't really create much, but it was disappointing being there and seeing what happened. But when I like to look at the games from that tactical perspective, like as I'm watching them, and it was amazing to watch what Man City did. I mean, 2-6-1-1. It was incredible.
I mean, with Man City, you underestimate them at your peril, don't you?
Yeah.
You know, and that's why I wanted to mention that feeling coming into it, because you touched on a couple of things that I couldn't agree with you more with, especially Botman against Haaland.
Yeah.
It's not very often Erling Haaland is living on scraps, and Haaland that's all he was getting off Botman, and that. And
isn't it right that? Sorry for putting him. Isn't it right that the last time Haaland didn't score when he played a full 90 minutes at the Etihad was when he played against Botman last time?
Was it? I didn't know that.
I'm sure that's the case, but it just shows you.
Oh, he's a class player, Botman, and I think we all know who was the difference on the day. Phil Foden was just absolutely.
Oh, he was out of this world. He was just brilliant. It was. If I hadn't have been a Newcastle fan at the match supporting Newcastle, it would have been a joy to watch as a, you know, just looking at the game as a neutral, you know. But I wasn't neutral enough.
And it looked like
yeah,
I know you can't. It's hard to switch those emotions off and look at it like you know what I mean. Like I walk away hoarse from most games. But yeah, no, on that particular game, at the end, I was a little bit disappointed because we got beat. I'm always disappointed when we get beat.
Oh yeah, of course.
But I you know, you come away from the Etihad, you get beat 1-0. I don't think there's any shame in that. It wasn't like it was backs against the wall the entire game. Like you say, there was a bit of a chess game that was going on in that particular one. And when we came away from it, after about 24 hours of getting over the initial disappointment of any defeat, which it normally takes, is at least that, I looked back and I thought, well, that's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, right, okay, so we've won 5-1. We've put in a decent performance against Manchester City. Bring on Liverpool was the way I was thinking about it.
I was the same, yeah.
And with the starting lineup with Liverpool, I knew he wasn't going to change that neither, because the good win on the first day, I think every single player who played in that 5-1, who played in the Etihad as well, had probably earned the place.
Yeah.
To say, you know, it would have been harsh dropping anybody from that. So when I saw the starting lineup at Liverpool, there wasn't any great surprises from it. Well, I mean, we're going to have to talk about the game. But for the first, 20, 25 minutes, when it was 11 against 11, for me, we were pretty much battering them. They weren't even at the races, and we looked so strong. Anthony Gordon, Well, the first point I want to talk about, because there's a few incidents to talk about in the game, is so you've got Anthony Gordon playing on the left hand side, and Trent Alexander-Arnold's having an absolute nightmare. He picks up a yellow card for a bit of petulance when the ball went out and needlessly kicking it away, which you're going to get booked for. Now, 2 minutes later, Anthony Gordon breaks free. He basically grabs and shoves him out of play like that. Now, if he hasn't kicked that ball out away a few minutes beforehand, he's getting booked for that every time.
Yeah.
Now, that was for me the start of saying, right, hang on a second, this left hand side is going to be really important to us now, because he's walking an absolute tight line.
Yeah,
exactly. He's on a tightrope here. He's on a thin ice, and he could get sent off at any stage.
Yeah.
It wasn't him that got sent off. It was Virgil van Dijk. Now, I want to know what you thought about that, because you listen to some pundits and they say it wasn't a red card. For me, it's definitely a red card. It was a red card.
I think going back to the Trent incident, I honestly think that Shearer mentioned it in Match of the Day, where it should have probably been a foul by Gordon on Trent Alexander-Arnold in the first place, and he threw the ball away. Now, I reckon that he's booked him obviously for his petulance, for whatever, but then I think he's had somebody saying in his ear that probably should have been a foul, but he can't go back and change that. And I reckon that that's the reason why he didn't book him, because it was definitely a book him, but it shouldn't work like that. He's already on a booking. If he does something that should be a bookable offence, he should be given another booking and sent off. And I think that's where the referees made a mistake. And I honestly think that's why. But
I think it's probably simpler than that. I think he's just bottled it. I think he's just absolutely bottled it.
You could be right. You could be right, because sending somebody off so early on, yeah, you could be right. But
and I think that's why he's been so quick to send Van Dijk off as well, because he's knew he's clean through on goal.
Yeah.
And I also think this is why they haven't sent him to look at the monitor to try and get it overturned, because then the old conspiracy theories start coming out. Well, Trent should have been sent off. He sent Van Dijk off, and he rescinded it. It's Liverpool, one of the big six.
Yeah.
I think that the people who's working on VAR probably went, well, first of all, I don't think it was one that needed to be rescinded.
That's what I would say straight away. Go on, sorry.
No, that's fine. But I mean, at that stage, I mean, we're already 1-0 up. You've got a man down. Now, I remember from the free kick. Now, and I want to talk about this as well. I think Trippier needs to start being a little bit more assertive with Shaw when we're getting free kicks in and around that area, because it's happened more and more often now where, and I know Shaw's got a decent free kick on him,
yeah,
but we're not seeing that Kieran Trippier over the wall that we all want to see. Look, and maybe it's just a selfish thing from me, or maybe it's just in hindsight. I mean, if Shaw puts it in the top corner, I'm going, keep Shaw on free kicks. I can't be a bit thick on myself, but for me, that free kick that came up in that game, it had Kieran Trippier written all over it, and after that free kick, we didn't really. We had our foot on the throat, and we didn't really go in for the kill, did we?
Yeah. I mean, going back to the sending off, I think the reason why he didn't send him off and why they didn't send him to look at the monitor is because it was definitely a sending off. That was cut and dry. I think that's the one decision that they got spot on, and that for me was a simple decision to make. But I agree with you, but Trippier is the free kick taker. Somebody who's obviously wanting to have a go. You might say it could be he wanted it with this foot, he wanted it with that foot, or whatever. I don't know. But the problem after that, I thought, because Liverpool basically were 4-3-3, same as us when the game started. We were murdering them, absolutely murdering them. And when they went, basically one of their best players, the captain, everything, he's gone. He's their mainstay in defence. I thought, this is it,
Felt cut and dry, didn't it?
But the problem was, for me, was we ended up not utilising the spare man. The spare man was an extra man in defence. And at the time I was thinking about what Man City had done the week before, where he just had 2 defenders on Isak and pushed everybody forward. Now, this was an opportunity to do exactly the same kind of thing, where what I would have done, I would have moved, maybe he's kept Dan Burn, maybe he's at the back, because I don't think he offers a great deal going forward, Dan Burn. Do you know what I mean? He's not like an overlapping player that gets crosses in and things like that. He links the play, but he doesn't do much more than that going forward. I would have had him and Botman looking after their striker, because they basically went 4-3-1. Yes, 4-4. No, sorry, they went 4-4-4-4-1. They went initially, because they were 4-3-3, and then they went 4-4-1. They had 1 striker and they had 2 lines of 4. And I thought, push Fabian Schär into midfield. He can play in midfield anyway, and he does often push forward. But I thought, push him in there, overload. They've got 4 in their midfield, so put our extra man into the midfield. We still got 2 at the back. Trippier would come forward, so we would end up having, really, you could have 5 in our midfield against their 4 if he'd pushed him forward. And then I think what may have happened was it would have allowed Tonali and or Joelinton or Bruno, one of those 3, to push that little bit slightly forward and get in between the lines, between their midfield and defence. And nobody was really getting in between those lines. And it was very rigid, and they were just stopping us getting the ball forward and stopping us creating anything. And if you think back, Kev, Isak, after the penalty, after the sending off, Isak didn't have another chance. Now, that wasn't necessarily his fault, because he made loads of runs. And then when Wilson come on, Harvey Barnes should have played him in that one time. But that was it. He didn't get another chance. We didn't create enough. And I honestly think that was the main problem, where I would have pushed that extra man into midfield. And it might have made all the difference,
Well, I think we missed a trick as well on that one, Davy, as well. I mean, I remember, a lot of it was a blur, but especially in the second half. I mean, I mentioned earlier on that, Trent Alexander-Arnold was on thin ice in Gordon, had him on toast every single time. And it just seemed, for whatever reason, we just didn't play that left-hand side in the second half. We kept going down the right-hand side. And you're seeing that Isaac didn't get any supply. And I think that's one of the reasons why, because there was a lot of the ball going to Miggy. Now, Robertson's a bloody good defender. And he knows for a fact that Miggy's got no right foot. So he was just showing him on the right foot all the time. He was like, "You go on, mate. If you want to go down there and use your right foot, I'm more than happy for you to do that." Now, the one time he did use his left was when he cut inside. Would have been a wonder goal, by the way. Yeah. If he'd hit the post, if we went inside, we could have been sitting having a very different conversation.
Well, it's fine margins like that. Exactly, hitting the post, and there was other chances as well that he had, but
I just couldn't understand why we didn't utilise Gordon, especially with Trent Alexander-Arnold being on that yellow card and being so close to getting sent off. But it was what it was, and I think everybody, you could sense it in the ground, you could sense it on the pitch. Jurgen Klopp could sense it, because also when they did take Isak off, I think was it Matip took off pretty much straight away, and he was like, "Well, hang on, I've only got him on for a foot race with Alexander Isak. What I'll do now is I'll bring on what you call the other defender he brought on, Gomez.
Remember. Yeah, that's right.
Brought Gomez on, and he's basically said, right, Callum Wilson, just muscle him, don't let him out muscle you, just be on him. So what that therefore did is it just kept them in the game. And poor Botman, he was a bit unlucky. Wasn't the best defender I've ever seen, but when it comes up off your backside, and it fell to a man who 1-on-1, just two great finishes.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the frustrating thing is we had a lot of possession, but we basically were passing the ball around the back. and we were looking to try and probe to get forward down both sides. And every time it just kept coming back because they were just blocking that off. And then, as you say, he started making changes, and you can say what you like about Klopp. I used to like him, but I don't like him anymore. I mean, I was saying I hope his false teeth come spitting out with Mad Dog by the end of the match. You know what I mean?
I'll be picking them up and putting them in my mouth.
but he's, you know, say what you like about him, but he is still a top coach, and he knows what he's doing. And he saw an opportunity because we didn't use that spare man. And he went 4-4-1. It was like, right, 2 lanes of 4, 1 guy up front for the break, you know, just in case. And then he changed it to 4-3-2 in the second half. Because at the back end of the first half, I said, if we don't score here before the first half ends, we're going to have to change something, or they will end up changing something. And unfortunately, it was Klopp that changed it, and he went to 4-3-2. And the work rate that they were doing was really, really, like, you know, it was something to see, because they were all over blocking us and stopping us from creating anything at all. And then at the end, he just must have thought, right, the best thing I can do now is bypass their midfield altogether. And he changed it again, and he brought, was it Jota on one side and the goal scorer on the other, and he went 4-2-3. He had 2 basically sitting holding in the midfield, and he had 3 up front. And they started pressing us, and it started looking as if they were the ones that had the extra man, because they were making it difficult for us. And I just thought, you know, that was the only thing where I thought, you know, I was disappointed that we didn't make any tactical changes. People were going on about the substitutes didn't do anything. I don't think it was anything to do with the substitutes themselves. I think it was the fact that he kept the same formation and he didn't change it. He didn't overload the midfield, you know, and it was really unfortunate that their first goal, Botman, and then of course he went off injured, and then Dan Burn was just too slow to turn for the second one.
And I think we've got to, sorry.
Yeah, we've got to move on because I'm getting depressed now.
Well, one thing I'm going to say on it, I mean, because it does tie into something that had happened previously, which I've got mixed views on, is there was a straight pass from Bruno, and now I don't know why he was. Well, I know why he was going for the pass. He was you know, trying to get an attack going, which is fair. Sometimes it happens, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Misplayed passes. Unfortunately, he was punished by it. But you know, he had just sort of been on social media the week before. You know, it was one of the social media platforms that said, "Look, is it time to change, or players are blame, or something along those lines."
Yeah.
And he'd sort of responded to say, you know, you've got short memories, which I do understand.
Yeah.
Look at Bruno Guimaraes. He is one of the players that lifted us into that 4th spot last season.
It was just a troll, basically, wasn't it? It was just somebody trying to be clever, and him reacting. You know, it's up to him. He's a human being at the end of the day. He's on social media, so he's going to say things, and he's reacted. I would have said far worse if I was him, like,
but that's the thing. We aren't these people, are we? I mean, you know, it's like. I think sometimes probably you're going to have to be a little bit thick-skinned, especially around Geordies, because, you know, we tear each other apart on social media, and you know, I've got mixed feelings about it. I try not to comment so much on things on social media because it seems like you can't do right for doing wrong. Now, I think that you're allowed to, you know, talk about and unpack when somebody's had a bad performance. You shouldn't be excluded from that. You know, it's like that's what it is. It's a subjective thing, football, isn't it? You know what I mean? Like,
to me,
we're allowed to talk about it, but what I kind of don't like is the bickering between the fans. Like, if somebody comes on and says, "Oh, somebody so and such had a terrible game," and then you'll get somebody turn around saying, "Well, just support the team." It's like, well, hang on. You are allowed to criticize.
Yeah.
And I hope we're not breeding this sort of thing online now where fans are getting at each other, because I know where it's coming from. It's the frustration that we're not having the beginning of the season that we've wanted. And everybody's frustrated, everybody's angry. But you do sort of need to be united as well, don't you? That we've got that in with title, and we need to remember that.
the way I see it in terms of with social media, it's like because of my disability and the medication I used to be on, I stopped drinking altogether a few years back, and I don't go to the pub after the game. I just come home and things like that, and I'll go on Twitter. And to me, social media is almost the equivalent of discussing the match with your mates in the pub after the game. It's just literally that you're not actually in the pub having a pint. You're discussing with lots and lots of people. The problem is you've got people who just literally just want to cause trouble and dive on and call people this and call people that. And they will literally just say black is white just for the sake of it, just for to cause an argument.
Yeah.
But we have to be allowed to discuss this the way that we are. We're talking about things. I mean, to be honest, I thought Nick Pope was slightly at fault for the first goal. It wasn't picked up on, but if you watch it, he's just on the edge of his 6-yard box, and as the ball falls, he just edges back 2 steps, and the way that he edges back, he's got that near post covered, but he opens up that gap when he's nervous, and he kind of, instead of holding his ground and maybe closing it down a bit further, coming out that, a step out, he's gone back and he's opened that gap to the far post, and he's seen that, and it was a great finish. You've got to give him credit for it. But I'm saying that, or people are going to start calling me all sorts because I'm saying that on here. People might, but it's not right.
Be that way.
You should be allowed to have a discussion about it.
Of course you are, Dave. You're allowed to do, and that doesn't mean that you don't love the club, you don't support the club.
I'm not slagging them off. I'm not having a go at them. I'm just saying
I've slagged players off in the past. You know what I mean? God, you know what I mean? We went through 14 years of Mike Ashley. It was hard not to, but I still love the club. I still went to every game. I'm still passionate about it. And when I do see players reaction and biting and stuff like that, part of it is like sort of taking it away from a Newcastle United thing. I think myself, well, in one hand, it shows he's a passionate lad, shows that he cares, so that's good. But on the other hand, I think myself, if you were like at a Real Madrid or a Barcelona and you're not playing well, their fans ain't holding back. They're letting you know. I remember the days if you were a manager and you managed Barcelona and you lost 2 games in a row, the white handkerchiefs came out.
That's right.
When them white handkerchiefs came out, you were getting sacked in the morning. So you know what I mean? You've got to have a bit of a thick skin and sort of take a bit of criticism. But I guess, we've touched on that. That's my feelings on it. A bit of a mixed emotion on it. But
it was just unfortunate. I think luck has to come into it as well. We didn't have much luck. Once the sending off had happened, we didn't have much luck in that game. But you make your own luck as well. And Klopp went for it, and you have to give him credit, But
it hurts. It hurt, but I mean, I couldn't look at anything to do with football for a couple of days. I was a little bit heartbroken by it. But then, as you do, you move on, don't you? And then we had an opportunity to say, right, okay, let's put that to bed. Let's move on.
It's difficult. I know exactly why, though, Kev. It's because it's not just because it's a game. I was at the Liverpool game at Anfield last season, and what happened there, and then with what happened with the sending off and everything, and the way the home game went. We wanted to stuff them. We really did. It wasn't just we wanted to beat them. We wanted to stuff them. And that was an opportunity, and it was thrown away. And I think that's an extra reason why a lot of the fans were really annoyed and upset, But it's just human nature.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can still hear, is it Martin Taylor going, Collymore, when he scored the 4th down in Anfield, There was so much pain. So you're right. Of all the teams I wanted to beat, especially when we're in that position, but it wasn't to be. Now, however disappointed I was by that, I was a different type of disappointed in the last game. We had to make the trip all the way down. And by the way, just a shout out to the fans that made the way down, because it was train strikes as well, wasn't it? And that's caused turmoil. But we again filled out the away end for the trip down to Brighton. Now that was always going to be a difficult game. Go on, I'm gonna give you the microphone. I want to hear what you think about this first of all.
I mean, I wanted to go. I've not been to Brighton. Distance is a problem for me. I cannot sit for very long. and our lass was back at work on Monday, and she had loads to do to sort out, so she couldn't go. So it meant that I would have had to driven there and back, and it's just impossible. I couldn't have done it, and I couldn't afford to stop over as well. And it's one of them things. So I was disappointed, but credit to all the fans who get there. I know my friend Natasha, she ended up having to put herself into a vodka stupor at the end to try and help her get to sleep on the way back. 8 hours minimum on the way back, you know what I mean? And I can't do that. I just couldn't do it. But
It's a long trip.
I was slightly concerned about this game, and I said before the match that every time I've watched Brighton, even when they've been beaten, they pass the ball really well, and they've got quick players. They just seem to, when teams press them, they seem to pass it around with ease. And I think we're the only team that really, really made it difficult for them in that respect last season. And I thought, they've got some cracking little players there. They've got rid of a few. But, looking at it, I thought, especially coming back hurt after what happened the week before, I thought we're going to go for this. The players are going to be hurt, and we're going to really go for this. And I ended up, I don't go to the pub, but I ended up going to one of the local pubs. Couldn't get a seat. I didn't take my wheelchair, so I was on my crutches, and I couldn't get a seat. And I was there like 3/4 of an hour beforehand, and ended up trying to find out where my other mates were. Couldn't get in touch with them, and I ended up going to this different pub. Lo and behold, this pub, which is supposed to be black and white and has been for years, is full of Sunderland fans. Now, I haven't seen anybody around here, and it's like, there was a blue moon the other day. I haven't seen anyone in red and white round here for years, right? But this weekend, with the Sun and them managing to get a 5-0 win with no strikers, they were obviously happy. They come out, they all went to the pubs, and they all come to watch Newcastle, to hope that Newcastle were going to lose or whatever, And I spoke to a few of them beforehand, and a few of them were, so the older ones were canny, and they expected us to win, and they were just looking forward to watching a decent game, and that was it. By half time, you'd think that Sunderland had won the Champions League, the way they were going on. Now, I wasn't particularly bothered, but our lass felt really intimidated. She just felt so uncomfortable. So we come out, and I managed to get it on a dodgy stream, and I watched the second half. But to be honest, Kev, it was weird because I felt bored watching the game. I haven't felt bored watching Newcastle United for a while now. And that was the first time where I just literally just thought, it's like I'm watching a different team here. It just didn't seem
like as well.
Turned up. I was bored out of my skull. I was glad when it was ended. I just couldn't see. I don't know. It just felt awful. It just felt wrong. There was something wrong,
Yeah, and this is one of those moments where we are going to discuss a little bit of what went wrong, and the caveat of that, the disclaimer is we do still love Newcastle United, but it needs to be thought about. Now, for me, I mean, we started the game really bright. We had a couple of chances, and I remember sitting watching, thinking, "Nah, this is the way you react to that disappointment."
Yeah, we looked class first few minutes. Yeah, you're right.
And then. Now, and you touched upon something that I really agree with you. When you try and high press Brighton, they are one of the teams that actually can play through that.
I think they revel in it. They revel in it, but we didn't press them the way that we would normally press them. We didn't quite do it the way that we normally do it. We weren't right on them. We weren't making it really difficult for them. It felt half-hearted. It was.
Well, I noticed that, Davy. I noticed that, and I said to my pal who I was watching it with, I said, I'm thinking, is this a purposeful tactical decision? Now, for me, when I was looking at it, I thought to myself, I wonder if they're just inviting them on so that
Yeah.
when we do get the ball back, we can maybe go on a counter attack
Yeah.
or go and counter them. But for me, you know, I mean, I'm no tactical genius, Davey. You know what I mean? Like you really know your tactics and stuff like that. But for me, a basic tactic is if you're not going to have that intensity when you're closing somebody down, if you're not going to do the high press that we normally do, when you do win the ball back, that's when the intensity comes. That's when you need to break forward quickly.
Yeah.
But it seemed when we were winning it back, especially in the middle, we're either passing it back or passing it sideways. And I thought, well, that surely wasn't the tactic. So if we're sitting off them and we're inviting them out and their line's getting up and we're getting a little bit space to sort of either go down the sides or maybe even if it's a ball over the top to try and get Isaac onto or anything like that, it just didn't happen. And I thought to myself, well, what is the tactic here? What have they been sent out to do? Have they been sent out to press and we're just not doing it? Have they been told to let them come on a little bit and then try and hit them on the counter and they're not doing that? It just felt like something was missing. And the word that kept coming up all the time was that thing that's supposedly what identity and has been for a long time and that we've done well. And that's the intensity. It just wasn't there. From take away the first 5-10 minutes, it just wasn't there. And I felt once the young lad got the first goal, it just didn't feel like a game we were ever getting back into.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think they, to be perfectly honest, the way that it was going, I kind of felt that it was going to happen. It was going to happen the way that it happened. And partly because I was surrounded by Sunderland fans, I was like half sort of looking at, you know, keeping an eye on make sure nothing happened to my wife and things like that and whatever. And trying to watch the match at the same time. I felt like they didn't play a narrow back four the way that most teams play. And they basically stopped the ball getting to the wingers a lot. But even so, when Miggy and Gordon kind of come deep, as you say, when the midfield pick it up, those three players up front, Isak, Miggy, and Gordon, are three of the fastest players. Gordon is, I think, the fastest player or second fastest player. You want to either get the ball over for them to run at or give it to them deep so they can run at the players. Now, Miggy, you've touched on, he often likes to come inside. He did the opposite. He did try and come on his right foot a couple of times, but he dragged it back a couple of times and there was nobody there. And that was the next thing. The midfield weren't joining in the way that Longstaff used to always be in there, and then Bruno would be coming in, and Joelton was getting in there. Give him credit, he was trying to get in there, but you know, we weren't flooding the box when the ball was coming down the wings. When we did have it there, we didn't have the numbers in the box, and it just seemed easy for them. And then they pick it up and they're away, and then we've got players who've pushed that little bit further forward. They're out of the game because they were really quick. And I wonder whether when that was starting to happen, that's maybe when we started doing what you said, where we started not pressing as high and sort of thinking, yeah, we'll play them on the break and we'll try and stop that, because you lose the ball against a team like that, even on their 6-yard line, they're away straight away. And you've got 4, 5, 6 players out of the game. One decent pass out and bang, and you're in trouble. And that's what they're really, really good at. And unfortunately, it just looked like we were just off it. And I think we missed Botman. We hugely missed Botman at the back.
The second goal, Davey, you know, that, any striker, let alone somebody, you know, who's young and hungry and looking to score, they just opened up and just went, go on, have a shot. There's the goal for you. And I think it was just a case of each man leaving it for the other one. I'll watch the man over here and he'll go and close him down, or he's going to close him down. So that's a lack of communication for me.
Yeah.
That should have been like, right, if somebody picks the ball up in that area, you know, whether it's Shaw or Spurn, they should have it already decided who goes to the man, who closes him down, and who covers the other side. It didn't seem like that had been discussed, and it looked like they were just leaving it to each other. And the result was they just opened the gate and went, "Go on, where are you going to put the ball, son?" Which was annoying. So we got punished for that mistake. But we got punished for another mistake.
It was a great finish. It was a great finish.
Fantastic
but he had
finish.
So much time to turn and look.
Take your
steady
pick where you're
himself,
going to hit
look
it.
where he was going to. He had time to do everything, you know,
Under no
and
pressure.
nobody was anywhere near him, and yeah, that was disappointing.
And
But-
Pope, he unfortunately got punished for his mistake as well, which, you know, I think there's a couple of elephants in the room here, which is, first of all, is Pope's distribution isn't the best. We know that, but when he's coming outside of the box, I'd rather him do that thing of just kick it in the stand than what he did,
yeah,
because
I agree.
your heart's in your mouth, and I know, like, your goalkeeper's effectively becoming a sweeper these days, and that's what he's trying to do. I guess I can understand that a little bit more, but if he knows that his strong point isn't his distribution, and he's in that, I'd rather him just knock it out of play and get back into the
Yeah,
net.
exactly.
And then there's the
Even
danger.
you're right, for a throw in, even
Exactly.
yeah.
And the other elephant in the room, I think, as well, and every man and his dog's probably talked about this now, is, can Bruno and Tonali play in the same team? I think they can, right? I do think they can. They just need to figure out who's dropping back and who's going forward, because I think that's where the miscommunications come in. They're very similar type of players. I think we're all understanding now. They're very similar type of players,
Yeah,
and having two players like that on the pitch can counteract itself. You know what I mean? That they're both wanting to be in the same positions. If they are going to be in the same team, they're going to have to understand the roles. One of them is going to have to try and be a little bit more of a number six, who's in front. And for me, that person's probably Tonali.
yeah.
But I think that's something that needs to be sort of sorted out on the training pitch. Or are you in the camp of where maybe they shouldn't be playing in the same team?
Well, I kind of think that you should play our best players, and they are two brilliant players. And I wouldn't leave either of them out if they were on their game. If one of them was carrying an injury and was losing form, then I would think about taking them out and giving them a bit of a rest and bringing them back and looking at, and I would initially have said that about Bruno, because he was carrying an injury for a lot of the back end of last season. And I thought, is he going to have an operation or is he just going to rest? But he did neither. He went off with Brazil. And, he's obviously, he's having to play and train and all the various things that he does there. And then it was almost like he was straight back. He didn't have time to get over that. Is he still carrying that injury? Do you know what I mean? That was the first thing. The second thing is when they played against Villa in America, it didn't seem to work. But when they played against Aston Villa in the league, it worked in the sense of like how brilliant Tonali was. Tonali was all over the place. He was just fantastic. And Bruno kind of sat a bit more, and he allowed Tonali to do that. And Joelinton kind of did the same sort of thing. And I kind of wonder whether is it a question of playing those two in those positions, or are we really missing Sean Longstaff? Are we really missing his intensity? It's that word again. Because out of everybody, he does the job that people don't see. The running off the ball that he does, creating space, he does it again and again and again. Some of the best goals we scored last season wouldn't have happened if he didn't run off the ball and create space for Bruno to move forward and get the ball to play like some Miggy and people like that. But it's not just that running off the ball, it's the fact that as soon as we lost the ball last season, he was one of the first players where it was like, right, I'm going to get this back within 5 seconds. He was like a terrier, and he'd be up and down and everywhere and making it difficult for everybody, basically. And I think it's a case of playing the best players, but you need to find a system. Is the 4-3-3 right? Should we maybe play a 4-2-3-1? I don't know. But we've got to trust Eddie Howe, because he's not just going to keep playing one system. He's going to look at the players that he's got and he'll find a way to do it. And that's why I'm not worried at the moment, because he will, if he continues to play 4-3-3, then he'll get the players working in that system and getting them to make it work, or he'll come up with different things. It's not the thing about formations as well is they're not static. They're very, very fluid. So we don't stay 4-3-3. It's rare that we're 4-3-3. There's a lot of the time we're actually like 3 at the back and sometimes 2 at the back. And, you know, the way the players move, we're all over the place. But I don't know. I think the incident with the first goal, I think people have picked up on that and looked at Tonali and his role in it. And whatever they're saying, was he lazy? Was it, you know, he should have done better, basically. But, you know, I think there's a way to do it. And I look at the old German sides where they would play 2 midfielders. One would go forward, the other one would hold. But then the other one would suddenly move forward and they'd interchange. They'd play the ball together and then they'd move out wide. And then all of a sudden they're out wide, but one of them would bang go forward. And there you've got an extra, almost like a number 10 that's in there. You know, that's the kind of thing I think Tonali might end up doing. Bruno's they're both capable of it. There's loads of ways. It's early days.
I agree with you, Davy. I think you do have to play your best players, and I think they definitely do come into that category of our best players. But I mean, we're getting close to the hour mark now. In closing, I'm not hitting the panic buttons just yet. Like, I'm not. It's early doors, and everyone's saying, but we only lost 5 games last season. We've won 3 now. Well, yeah, that might be the case, but I think we always knew we weren't going to probably have that same thing this season. But we also drew a lot of games last season, a hell of a lot of games.
Yeah.
Now,
exactly.
some of the games we drew last season, I think we'll pick up wins on. And we've got a nice little run coming up now. We've had a really difficult start, you know.
I know.
Really difficult start. And we've got a nice
players to come in.
Games.
I think Hall will get a lot of game time. You know, you know, I wasn't expecting finishing top 4 this season. I think it was going to be difficult. And I wonder whether the players with the whole hullabaloo, the Champions League a couple of days before, you know, was that on the mind a little bit? Were they thinking ahead of that? You know, you just don't know. They're human beings at the end of the day. I mean, I'm still excited. I'm still excited. It's early days. I think we'll come good. And you know, I've got a feeling we might be slow starting, and then we might stuff Paris Saint-Germain and Borussia Dortmund and all that, you know, Milan.
I'm going to Dortmund. I've got my flights booked, so
Brilliant.
I hope you're right on that one. Got my flights booked. Just need the ticket now. Get us a ticket. But what, you know, I think we'll beat Brentford as well. We'll not go too much into that because Brentford, if you don't know, the game's been moved to this Saturday, the 5:30, because we've got the Champions League. So I'm sure everybody's aware of that.
It's a tough game. They're a good side.
It's a tough game. We will beat them. We will beat them.
I think we should. Yeah, I think we should. But it's again, if we don't beat them and if we lose, it's not the end of the world.
It's not the end of the world. But I'm confident we'll beat them. But anyways, what we'll do, we'll come back and we'll do a preview of that game. We'll come back, Davy, and we'll certainly unpack what we think's going to happen, what we think should happen, and we'll have a say on that. We are coming towards the end of the show now. So, Davy, you've been classmate, bringing some proper knowledge to the channel. So really glad to have you on board. It's refreshing to hear just honest opinions. So cheers, more of that, mate. On a channel basis, hit the subscribe button if you can. If you've got anything to say about anything we've been talking about today, leave a little comment on there. We will reply to your comments as well. Give it a like. There's a little bell button. Just get it pressed. That would be great. If you want to share it with other like-minded fans, that would be great. But we'll see you next time on the All the Pies channel, where we'll be talking about the Brentford game. And, Davy, if you got a little thing, so at the end I always go, come on, like that. You got a little catchphrase you want to have at the end?
Well, my catchphrase is, it doesn't really matter, but it does.
Come on.
However.